Good morning. This is Sarah Rose Solly, and you're listening to the Barbie Trauma Podcast. Our main goal is to share conversations that will help end the stigma surrounding mental health and trauma. Each episode, I aim to share what I've learned on my own healing journey and also through starting a nonprofit that serves survivors of physical and sexual violence. Though some of these topics may be heavy, we vow to approach this conversation differently and more authentically than you've ever heard it before. We're here to advocate for women, education, and mental health, while also embracing the art of comedy and powerful healing vibrations of laughter. In other words, we try to not take ourselves too seriously. This is episode 2, titled You're Kenough, with special guest Tasha Ballard joining us. Tasha is a dear friend of mine, and she works at XM Performance, where she does everything from marketing to leadership classes and personal consulting, all to make you and your business thrive. So Tasha, in your own words, first of all, welcome. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Sarah. I'm happy to be on. I'm excited for you. Episode 2. But you gave me a great intro. My official title is Director of Marketing and Leadership Trainer here at XM Performance. And we help small and medium-sized businesses become the best places to work for in America. So I'm out networking, telling people about us and what we can do to help. Again, I do leadership classes as well on a monthly and one-on-one basis. And I help with some one-on-one coaching with business coaches and leaders.
Well, thank you, Tasha. If anyone's listening that's in the DFW area and need a little guidance on growing your business, I would definitely recommend contacting XM Performance.
Thank you. I would be happy to help.
And Tasha, can you tell us today who or what is your Barbie identity?
I'm going to have to go with Leadership Barbie. I mean, leadership is my jam. I love teaching it and helping these frontline managers that are directly affecting their employees become better leaders and be equipped with those skills to do so. So I'm all about it. I'm all about the Leadership Barbie.
I love it. Leadership Barbie fits you perfectly. Your inner child should be so proud that that's who you grew up to be. Your family should
Right?
be proud, as is mine,
Mhm.
I'm sure. I always wanted to grow up and be the black sheep of the family with unhealed trauma. That's every girl's little dream, to be Trauma Barbie, and I've
Mhm.
achieved it. Anyway, let's dive into today's topic, and that is You're Kenough. Now, this is a line from the Barbie movie, so full disclosure, if there are some spoilers here, stop listening if you haven't seen the movie. Just kidding. We really need the views. Please keep watching. Tasha, I'm going to let you kind of set the scene of Kenough here in a minute, but I wanted to be honest with our viewers that we saw this movie together in theaters,
Mhm.
and we were both very pleasantly surprised. We cried, we laughed. Tasha actually laughed so hard she snorted at one point. And then tell them what else you did.
Oh gosh. So for maybe the first time ever, I slow clapped and started a clap. I've never clapped during a movie or even after a movie. Like people aren't here that made the movie to hear it. So I'm like, whatever. But man, after that monologue, it just like built up all in me. And I just was like, I just went to clap like once or twice and be like, woo. And then other women and people in the audience started clapping and going like, yes. And I was like, I just did that. I was embarrassed at first, but then I was like, "Oh, cool. I had some other people in here who agreed that was amazing."
Yeah, you absolutely started it and everybody jumped on. That was a really fun moment.
Leadership, Barbie.
There you go, in action. It's funny because I always hated people in the theaters that would laugh really loud or would do the clapping or would shout something at the screen. Like they would make you feel like we're all friends in the comfort of our own home watching this movie. And it's like, now we're those people
Yeah, I
doing
know. I
that.
totally was. I
I
was.
think I even turned around and kind of motioned a few times like, Why aren't you guys laughing at this? Like, this was a really good joke." I think most people in that theater were born after 2000 and they just didn't get some of those references because they were just on
Yeah,
point.
they were so good, but yeah, they might not have understood quite how on point they were.
We really enjoyed ourselves immensely. And personally, there was a few things I didn't agree with on every aspect of the film, but I want to say there were just so many great and important themes, and they were all told through humor, which is my personal love language. So it's really hard to be butthurt, even after those brief topics that one may not agree with, when the movie is told so well through satire.
I agree.
So let's talk Ryan Gosling and his line in the movie. I believe it comes after a song as well, I Am Ken. So, kind of, Tasha, if you in your own words could set up that scene for us.
So I could say it was Ryan Gosling kind of, well, actually, Margot Robbie helping Ryan, and so Barbie helping Ken realize that he's not just the Ken for the Barbie, because whenever you hear Barbie, you think like Barbie Ken. You don't really think Ken first. You think Barbie is first. She was even like helping him realize like we don't have to be together for you to have your own identity. You're enough, and then he took it to the next so that he's Kenough. So it was hilarious, but also touching and meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you laid that out really well. What does your Kenough mean to you?
So in the movie, like I was saying, I felt like from the man's point of view and how it was laid was that, he doesn't always have to be the kin to the Barbie. Like he can be his own kin, not just beach kin. He can be whatever kin he wants to be, right? But when I'm thinking about it in like my own terms, I mean, I can just come back at you for a question real quick and then I'll finish it. But like whenever you're out networking and meeting new people, what is one of the first questions they ask you?
What do you do?
Exactly. And so that really identifies you. And that's okay, especially if it's something that you're passionate about. But sometimes you have to like, okay, I'm not just leadership trainer at XM Performance. That is amazing, and I'm happy to be that. But I'm also a daughter and a mother and a friend, a dog mom, but I call it my children, and a friend and a sister, and all these other things that I'm not just identified by one area, even though it might be a big important area in my life. That there's much more sides and a lot more to me.
I love that. That's a great explanation. Love it, and I'm loving your
Thank you.
Kinergy right now. Did you play with Barbies growing up?
Absolutely, yes. I had like just buckets and bins, probably two or three of them. I also had a little sister, so they always end up in the same bin after a little while. I mean, my Barbie was my Barbie, and I would share when we were playing, but then eventually they all got passed down to her.
Did you have a favorite Barbie?
You know, yes, and it's actually Skipper. So I know, right? Kind of throwing in the mix there. But I think it's because I identified better with Skipper because she was brunette. And it's simple as that, but it's, and now it's easier to understand, and people are talking about that now too, is being able to see characters on the TV show that look like you, allow you to relate to them more, all the different kind of Disney princesses and such. But when playing with Barbies, I always like to buy the brunette Barbie. I think it was Skipper and Teresa or something like that, that were the brunettes. And so I definitely had a lot more blonde Barbies, but I think I identified pretty well with Skipper.
Did Barbie make you feel empowered as a child?
So that's a good question. Whenever empowered, I didn't think that I really knew what that meant as a child and while I was playing with them. Looking back, do I think it was pretty cool to play house and cook what I wanted to cook, and go to bed when I wanted to go to bed, or get in the Barbie car and drive to the beach, or whatever I was pretending I was doing? Sure, like I think that I wish I would have been talked to a little bit more younger, and how that could make me feel empowered. But now I would say even more so, especially after seeing the movie. It was very empowering. I left on fire, pink fire, but on fire for myself and all women, all people really, not just women. But I felt, I can't even explain it. I was so empowered. I mean, I clapped in the middle of the movie theater. Who does that? So I felt great.
That's a fair point. We don't necessarily know what empowerment means as a child, right? I definitely left the theater feeling that way too. We both did. I'm really glad we saw it on a Friday night so we didn't just have to go home afterwards, because we were just like, yeah, let's take on the town and we can do anything because Barbie can do anything.
I know, and those 2 poor girls that were sitting next to us at the restaurant after, I was just so excited. I was like, "They have to love it too." So I'm like, turning around these 2 younger, they're in their what, they was 21 maybe, and I was like,
Mhm.
"Did you guys see the Barbie movie yet?" They hadn't, so we were just talking about how amazing it was, but it was, yes, definitely empowering.
Yeah, we immediately tried to recruit people. Like when you find something something good and you just want to share, like, we wanted to share the word of Barbie and you all need to go see this movie and this is
Yes.
why.
Yeah, I was like, "Come to the dark side. Well, come to the pink side." Like, come on, you need to see it.
That's perfect. I love that. I personally love playing with Barbies too as a kid. I loved the dream houses, like everything you said, combing their hair, picking out their outfits, packing up their cars for trips to the beach or to go camping, rearranging their furniture, planning their meals. All things I kind of hate doing as an adult for myself, but through a doll, it sure was fun, right? I even
Right.
secretly played with them till like junior high, which is highly,
Wow.
yeah, it's highly unusual. I Googled it actually. Most kids stop playing with Barbie, normal children stop playing at like 9 or 10. And it's like, yeah, 12 is kind of a bit.
Normal's no fun. Normal's no fun. You're good.
And this is coming from someone who was actually a pretty big tomboy. I had short hair and was playing sports and stuff at that age. I wouldn't consider myself like a feminine child around that time. But to me, Barbies just represented, I think, a time of safety, a time of innocence. They
Mhm.
represent, and they still represent to me, imagination and inspiration.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. Like you said, I remember, putting on all of the different dresses or outfits, or, I could be a doctor one day and at the beach on the next. But if I could just change one thing about my experience with playing with Barbies, it's that I could keep up with both pairs of shoes, because I don't know how many times my mom would come in and be like, "Why is your Barbie always wearing two different shoes?" I'm like, I don't know where the other one is.
I haven't thought about that in like decades, but that is 1,000% true. I don't think my Barbies ever had matching shoes, even like when they were the big boots or something. I still could
Yeah.
never find the other one.
I'm wouldn't be surprised if it probably ruined a couple of vacuums for my mother, so sorry, mom.
That sounds about right. So besides that horribly negative part of playing with Barbies,
I know, right?
do you feel that Barbie or the idea of Barbie was ever a negative influence in your life personally?
No, personally, I can't think of a time, especially as a child. I don't think I had really any identity things or trying to want to be just like her. I embraced that I was a brunette. Although when I went into high school, I definitely bleached my hair and it was horrible. But I could not pull it off. I tried. I don't think it had a negative effect on me. Now, I will say, as a younger adult in my 20s, I did struggle a little bit when I started to gain weight. I used to be able to do whatever I wanted to do, eat whatever I wanted to eat, and sit on my butt all day. And I still was a size zero, just walking around like hot stuff. And so when I started to gain weight, I think that maybe I could see where that could be an issue. And people were talking about it right around then too, about body image issues. And I had just started listening to that, and I know that sometimes they correlated Barbie with those body images. For me personally, it wasn't Barbie that did that for me. So the answer all in all is no, I don't feel like it affects me in a negative way. But I do think and very much appreciate that there are other things out there that could affect that for women and young women especially.
Yeah, I tend to definitely agree with that. Like I've had my own struggles with body image for so many different reasons, but personally, I can't trace it back to Barbie at all. I'm not saying it never happens, but that is one thing that I did disagree with in the movie, that some of the messaging there was that Barbie had a negative influence or made younger girls feel bad about themselves. And as a child, I'm part Lebanese, so I would get very, very tan. I was very dark skinned, dark hair, overweight, little chubster tomboy. Yeah, I never looked anything like Barbie, and I didn't think twice about it, in that context. What I did think about was what real life people were saying to me, what adults were saying about my body,
Exactly.
like my
Mhm.
grandmother, or what other kids were saying about my body. I was bullied and teased in the real world, but not in my safe little Barbie world. And the kids that made fun of me or the adults that had issues with my body certainly didn't learn that negative behavior from a doll. I think it's completely
Mhm.
false to claim overall that girls exposed to Barbie have lower self esteem or poor body image issues, that's not coming from a doll, in my opinion. That's coming possibly from some other trauma, or you're hearing it from somewhere else. Like we said, there's so many other things, especially nowadays, that kids are exposed to. But that's
Yeah.
my TED talk on that.
I completely agree. I mean, I can see where it's happened to other people, but for me personally, I can't attribute it to playing with the Barbies. It was definitely, the junior high school girls that mainly started that kind of thing for me too. Yeah.
Exactly. You can be a trauma Barbie like me, but don't blame your trauma on Barbie. Um,
Absolutely.
so
Leave Barbie out of it.
leave Barbie out of it. So, speaking of trauma, even though we keep a somewhat lighthearted attitude here, because that's one of my own personal coping mechanisms, I always want to give our guests a chance to speak on their past and their hardships. So, is there anything in that realm that you'd like to share with us today?
I mean, there's lots of different things that could be categorized as different kinds of trauma that I've been through in my life. I will say trials and tribulations are something that has happened and oftentimes still happens, some bigger than others. So I've definitely dealt with my share of different types of trauma. The one that's really affecting me, I would say now and that I'm doing work on now is the trauma of abandonment. It started when I was a teenager and continued throughout my life as growing as an adult and even today. So it's something that I've actually come to notice like what that was. Why was I feeling depressed? Why was I feeling anxious? Why do I like sabotage relationships sometimes? Why do I sometimes grab too hold to relation or too close to relationships? I think a lot of that has to do with the abandonment that I went through as a child and a teenager as well. So I'm definitely working on it. I'm actually in the process of writing a book, which I'm super excited about. It's going to be called Thank You for the Lemons, and it's going to talk about overcoming abandonment and heartbreak. So I haven't written the ending yet because I'm still working on some things, but it's definitely in progress and should be done in the next year or so.
I want to thank you so much for being vulnerable enough to share that with us today. And that
Yeah.
is an award winning title if I've ever heard one, for
Thank
sure.
you. I'm obsessed with women, so anytime I can talk about them, it's fine with me.
Well, and Tasha, we'd love to dive into that more another time. We've really enjoyed having you here today.
Absolutely. I'd love to come back. I'd love to share.
I think even along with this theme of Barbie, we could get like 10 more episodes.
Oh, yes. There's so many different moments that I'm like, we could talk about an hour just about that one statement that was made in the movie. So, yes, well, lots of content to come for sure, I'm sure.
Well, thank you again, Tasha, so much for being with us here today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
This podcast is something we do for fun. It is not directly related to my day job, which is founder and executive director of the nonprofits, The Usual Art Specs. However, if you would like to donate to our nonprofit, all funds go directly towards providing art therapy and other resources for female survivors of sexual trauma and domestic violence. We greatly appreciate your consideration and support. To donate, please go to www.theusualartspecs.com. You can also find us on Facebook as The Usual Art Specs and Instagram on The Usual Art Specs DFW. Our podcast now has its own Instagram account as well. To stay up to date on new episodes, follow us at Trauma Barbie Podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in today. We have many more episodes to come and hope you tune in the future. And with that, I will be signing off. Bye, Barbie.
Bye, Barbie.